What's up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel, Morgan Allena True Crime and Mystery. I know a lot of things have happened since the last video that I posted, and I want to kind of get into all of that. Obviously, Ken, Raina, Sir Morbid panel nonsense, I guess I should say. I want to get into what they said and go over a couple things. Before we get started on today's topic, I want to say thank you very, very much. I mentioned last week that my last video where I gave a shout out to Megan Mitchell for giving me a super thanks. 4 more of you guys gave me a super thanks, and I want to say thank you to Gwen, very cool name, for the super thanks. And then Pause Toddy, Mellow Yellow 2022, and Claire Powers SV9MT. Thank you guys very, very, very much. I really appreciate that. All of you that have given me a super thanks, or even just for watching and sharing my videos, I really, really appreciate that. That really seriously does help when you guys are sharing my videos or posting it to various things like your groups or Reddit or whatever. That does help a lot. It sends a lot of new viewers my way, and it helps kind of with the various algorithms or whatever, and gets people coming to see my videos. So I do really, really appreciate just you guys taking the time and watching my videos and commenting and just communicating back with me, because I do look forward to that and interacting with it and commenting your thoughts and opinions. And again, I always say this, even if it doesn't align exactly with mine, that's not an issue for me. I'm not somebody that wants everybody that's watching my stuff to agree 100%. That's not the way I operate, and I want you guys to feel comfortable and feel like you can say, interesting, but anyway, please make sure to give this video a thumbs up, and also don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Let's get into this whole Ken, Raina, Sir Morbid panel. And if you are not familiar with Sir Morbids, they sit around, it's honestly like a very long thing, it's like 4 hours, and they'll have various people, creators or not, come up and just discuss things related to Gypsy Rose. And every so often Ken will come on, and then sometimes his mom, I think Christy's been on there, and then Gypsy's bestie Bree has been on there. I don't know if Gypsy herself has ever went on there, I mean, at least directly. I'm pretty sure she's like over in the corner, like, say this to him. Right on a piece of paper, but it's not all the time, it's just every so often. I think usually whenever they're trying to do some sort of damage control, or basically to kind of, I don't know why they do it. I think their goal is to try to help clear some things up, but it always seems to backfire on them every single time, which, I mean, obviously that's gonna happen when you're going on a literal panel of people that dislike Gypsy Rose. I don't know why any of them would think it would be a good idea. That would definitely not be my move. But, hey. So, yeah. Personally, I was going back and forth on whether or not I really wanted to make a video going over this whole entire subject, because I tend to steer away a little bit from mostly anything that involves other creators, and especially when it's a panel full of them. Overall, I like pretty much all the creators. Everybody's got their own thing, and I sometimes I have opinions about certain things, and I don't want it to be misconstrued as I dislike this person. You know what I mean? There are certain things that certain people will say or do that I personally wouldn't do, and I don't align with in my behaviors or the way I act. And that doesn't mean I dislike them or I'm against them, nothing like that. Typically try to just stay away from giving any sort of opinion on anything, just because I don't want to entertain the thought of getting into drama, because I know sometimes people are waiting for that moment, and that's just not me. I don't have any desire to get into any sort of competition with anybody. That's just not my thing. But I was gonna make it earlier, this video, earlier this week, and then I've just had a rough week. To give you an idea, so the other night, I'm a person that will I like long hot baths. That's just me, that's how I like to relax. I was taking a bath. It was nearly midnight. My security camera on my front porch goes off, which is pointing towards another building, which a family member owns. It was an excavation company, but family member died, so it's not super close, but it's just tractors and track hose and all that. And since that's just sitting there, I don't even live in a city, mind you. I live in a very, very small town, very rural area. And I feel like a lot of the times, like in small towns, the police force, I'm gonna call it a force, the like 3 cops that we've got that like will sit and hide in the shadows to try to catch you going 3 over and write you a $200 ticket. You got like 3 options. They're either gonna be like giant a-holes, totally dumb, or I don't know, racist, probably. Like, those are your options. Sometimes every so often there's some good ones, but this time around it was the dumb ones that came. Like, because I didn't even know anything was going on. The family member has their own security system up over there, and it's like motion sensors because there's been an issue with people creeping over there trying to get into the stuff and steal stuff or whatever. And so I got my security alarm going off, and then I saw the cops were just like whipping in, like gravel flying. I was like, ooh, what is happening? Freaked me out. I was like immediately, no, it was the cops. Like, they didn't have sirens on, and when I looked at my camera, it was in black and white because it was like night vision. But not even 60 seconds later, they pull in, open the door, then they're out, they're leaving again. I'm like, what? So just waiting, and then not even 10 minutes later, 2 people walk out from behind the buildings. They're walking down the road, like 2 guys. I'm just like, I really hope y'all are smart enough to like wait down the road or something, because like, just don't tell me you guys just pulled in that quick. It was dramatic to just totally miss them. Like, that's it, that's all we get is a 60-second interval. You're not even gonna attempt to look or catch them. But oh well, there's probably gonna be a next time, because, you know, whatever, it's been an ongoing issue. You would think I'd like live in a really rough city or something, like, for this weird stuff. Like, one time I had a DoorDash driver show up to my porch at like 3 in the morning. And again, small town, there's nowhere open. Literally no restaurants, nothing's delivering. He had a DoorDash bag, he was in pajamas and a hat and wearing gloves. And he was looking around, he was like knocking on my door, like super light, like, I was like, what are you doing? Like, I didn't open the door. I was just like talking through my camera. I was like, what? He's like, I have an order, a DoorDash order. I didn't order anything. He's like, what's the address? I was like, what's the address? I was like, I didn't order anything. And like, you could literally tell that there was nothing in the bag. Because, you know, 90% of like DoorDash or any sort of delivery driver, they're just gonna set it down and walk away. They're not gonna, he was like standing out there for a long time. I was like, is this a setup? And not even like 3 weeks later, I was like scrolling through TikTok, and then I saw a video of somebody that like got robbed doing the same exact thing. It was like somebody was on the front porch knocking, and I could tell he was acting weird. Like, he pulled up with, I forgot, he had no lights on his car. He pulled up totally blacked out. I was just like, there is no way I'm answering this door and getting like bum rushed up in this house. Like, I'm just not gonna do it. I'm not gonna end up on a TV show. Like, it will never be me if I have anything to do with it. That's just not gonna happen. But like, I just feel like these weird things always happen to me. But anyway, yeah, dude never left anything. There was nothing in the DoorDash bag. I ended up having to call like and report him. I was just like, he didn't see my camera though, because I like keep my camera off to the side, and I was like talking through it, so he heard me speaking, and he was like looking around. It was so funny to me. It's kind of a bad thing also about like living in like a small rural area. Slow to react. It's not like there's something always happening, so it's not like they're super trained on things like that, you know what I mean? But anyway, so yeah, that's why I didn't make this video sooner. And again, like I said, I was kind of going back and forth on it anyway, just because I want to just preface this video and say, like, if I say anything that may come across as not overwhelming positivity or support of what somebody says, whether it be on the panel or whatever, like, don't take it as I'm against this person or I dislike them. Keep that in mind, okay? Just to get that out of the way. But I really only want to like cover the main points of things that I thought were entertaining or important, mostly in the important stuff. But there was one part where I was just like, oh my gosh. So recently Gypsy Rose has uploaded some new photos to Instagram showing off her post-baby bod, which, I mean, good for her. A lot of women after they give birth tend to drop a lot of weight. That's pretty standard, but Gypsy obviously felt the need to point this out because she posted a story to her Instagram basically saying it was like a numbered list of things that she wanted to address to the public. Number one being that CPS was not involved with her kid, and saying that she's not on any weight loss medication and that people are just jealous because they aunt her, and she literally spelled ant like the bug. And again, I always say this, if you go back and watch that video that I posted about how Gypsy Rose was actually the one that was pretending to be Dee Dee when making Facebook posts and communicating back and forth with Christy Blanchard pretending to be Dee Dee, I've had this theory for the longest time, and then every time I see Gypsy misspell or incorrectly say something, it instantly just comes back in my mind because I just feel it, that she was actually the one pretending to be Dee Dee with all those posts. All the posts bragging on Gypsy was literally Gypsy. But other than that, Gypsy was saying another rumor basically has been going around that Christy is doing a lot of the work, and Gypsy pushes back on that, saying, nope, I'm a super mom, doing amazing. Instant natural, even though I've never been around newborn babies, I instantly got it all on the first try. I mean, interesting. Very, very interesting. Which obviously Gypsy is clearly willing to leave the baby at home for a date night immediately with Ken to brag about herself. I mean, if you just look at the photos that she posted, it's really, really telling about what her focus is, and it's actually herself. Just the style of photos that she's posting, I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being confident and feeling good and getting back to how you felt before being pregnant. And of course we all, or maybe we don't all know, but there was some speculation going on that Gypsy really hated being pregnant. She was refusing to eat and doing all these things. She didn't want to be pregnant. She hated it, and it makes sense. I think that's also why Gypsy lost a lot of weight. She didn't enjoy being pregnant. I think she thought the attention would be a little bit better, but I think she ended up feeling uncomfortable, which a lot of people do, but I think for Gypsy it's a different kind of thing. But now that she's, birthed her baby, just toss that to the side and get back to focusing on what's really important, because she got what she needed to trap Ken. And I think that, honestly, when I was watching or listening to Sir Morbid's podcast, is it a podcast? Whatever, his live panel, and listening to Ken's mom talk about it, I truly, and this is probably very likely an unpopular opinion, I do feel for the mom of Ken. And I do understand where she's coming from, because if you think about it, I am a mom to a little boy. And growing up, I had really, really hard, constant threats of being disowned for any slight little thing. I remember one time I didn't tell my dad that my oldest sister stopped going to church. She was out of the house, married. I was in high school, and she had told me that she's got into it with the pastor, which was also her father-in-law. And she told me that, and I was like, okay, didn't think anything of it. And then it comes to find out my dad talked to my sister, and then she told him that I knew, and he literally came into my room and said that I betrayed him. I betrayed his trust. How could you do this to me? I was like, what the fuck? What? So that constant thing of being disowned or abandoned is something I think some people can understand, and then that's why they choose to be willing to stand by their kids in spite of things that they do that you may or may not approve of. Because she very easily could totally be like, I don't support you at all, I don't support this relationship, and until you end it, we're done. But ultimately that only ends up hurting the parent and then also the child, because it does hurt. I don't think anybody, whenever they go no contact, because your kids are going to do what they're going to do. I ultimately ended up cutting my dad off for a long time. I've tried to mend that relationship, but that's also a totally different story. But they're gonna do what they want to do. So you can either choose to be a part of their life in spite of them making choices that you don't agree with. And I do think it's important to make it known to a point, because either way you're gonna push them away. And so I think I can understand where she's coming from. Also, I want to point out, Ken and Gypsy have been together for years. So for years, this relationship was not really that, it was sort of known, but not overall as well known as what it is now, especially since Gypsy's been released and has her little TV show and all of that. So they were operating for years with Gypsy under the assumption that she was being honest. And it was not until she was released that certain things started to come out and that this was not the entire story. So honestly, a lot of that has to do with people that are out, putting out content or posting, copies of the records, things like that. So you have to think that it's almost like conditioning them. So they had these years worth of interactions with her, getting to know her, and just truly believing that she was a victim. Hearing all these horrible things, and then come to find out they're not actually true. Not only is that a betrayal of trust, I can understand how difficult that would be, thinking that you are getting to know this person and, allowing them to be somewhat a part of your life because you are believing that they are being honest with you about something truly terrible. And instead they totally, it's not really a shocker, but I think it could be a shocker. You know what I mean? You want to give people the benefit of the doubt, especially when it comes to abuse situations regarding kids. So I can understand that, after these years long of, assuming that Gypsy was being honest with them, and then coming to find out, oh my God, she left a lot out. None of this is true. What do you do? And then again, I've said it before, that Gypsy knew that she had to get pregnant by Ken immediately because she knew that he was capable of leaving her. And that, I think, is a huge, huge trigger for her. Definite, abandonment issues with that one. So she absolutely trapped him. And then following that, we were watching it play out. So things had already happened, and then we're seeing it, obviously. So things were already progressing. She was already pregnant by the time we see these things unfolding. And it's just, I can only imagine, because it really didn't pick up with people speaking out against her and all these things coming to light. It didn't really pick up until she was with Ken, pretty much pregnant, leaving Ryan. All of this was happening. So I think it would be it would be very, very difficult for something like that to happen. So I do understand possibly why Ken wants to live in a sort of rose-colored glasses type of thing. He doesn't want to open himself up to the possibility that he was tricked and deceived by somebody that I think he really does care for her. It's apparent that it's been difficult on the relationship, coming to find out all of these different things that happened to Gypsy that she failed to mention to him, probably. I think she absolutely lied and manipulated him, and as well as all of the family. I don't know even how far it would go with Rod and Christy and all of them. I think maybe they would have access to some of the records, but honestly, who knows? Who knows if she was actually going through and reading every single thing, or were they just taking her word? Because also, if you're coming at it too, well, she was so abused and traumatized, and would you want to, hurt her more by not trusting her, believing her? So I can understand maybe where they were coming from in that aspect, but I do think that Blanchard side definitely got mixed in with the whole money and the shows and that side of it. But as far as, I don't fault Ken's mom, because that's not her daughter. That's her son, and he happened to find himself in a situation that is not what probably any parent would want. And there are a lot of stories where people do things like this, and they aren't actually bad people. Even I am very outspoken on the fact that I think the Menendez brothers were more justified in their actions in regards to what they did to their parents, and I think they could be forgiven. So there are some people that are more willing to understand, not to forgive all the way, not to erase what happened, but to come to an understanding of why certain things happened. And then if you're not looking at the actual records, and then you're just relying on the one source to tell you something, and the attorneys to tell you something, it would absolutely be a slap in the face. So perhaps Ken is trying to like protect or maintain some sort of vision that he had in his head of what this actually was, and that he was actually just some person that took a chance on somebody that had a horrible upbringing and was horribly abused. Because if you do go back and listen to that panel when Gypsy's book is brought up, and I don't know how active Ken is on social media. I know he does have these things, but I don't know how often he's looking through things. But the moment that book was brought up was a very interesting reaction. God, I wonder if the issue was not so much like the raunchy stuff that was in the book, but more so the differences in the stories that he's heard and what's written. I can imagine that would be very difficult, and then now you're bringing a baby into the world, so you're probably trying to make the best of it. And I'm not saying I feel 100% sorry for him, but I think in the beginning he was absolutely manipulated. Whose fault is that? It's also his. Because when you're trying to be a good person and you're trying to give somebody a chance, you still have to maintain some sort of intellectual capability. You know what I mean? Like, you have to be able to think and process and analyze situations to think about that. But sometimes people are just really easily taken advantage of. Now there's a baby involved, and a lot of people, of course, a lot of people want to make things work whenever they have their first child. I think especially, you want to make that first relationship work. You want to make it happen. You want to have both parents in the home, because obviously if you've ever come from a single parent home, it's not as fun as having both parents, in a healthy relationship. Obviously you want to do the best for your kids. I think it was super hilarious though that the second that Kim went on this panel, he instantly was like, "I hate all of you." And then they were like, "Why?" Come on. How could, you can't seriously expect him to go on to this and anybody that's talking actively going against someone that he cares about, whether he actually cares about her, but regardless, as the mother of his child now, he's not gonna love you. I mean, I don't expect him to like me if he even knows about me, but you know what I mean? I don't think, especially because I'm bringing up things that are quite literally contradicts everything that she says. Who would like that? Nobody wants to be pointed out as a liar with every single sentence they utter. So I wouldn't expect him to be overwhelmingly respectful in that.
Are you okay, Ken?
I'm amazing.
Are you safe now?
Tell us about it. Tell us about it.
I hate you guys, but I'm good.
Why do you hate us? Number one, why do you hate? Why, Ken? What do we do?
All right, let's move on.
Ken, you said you hate us. Yeah, come on, man. What do you hate? What do you hate about? No, just be open. Just you hate us because
you hate us. What is it?
It's okay. Just
is it the truth that we put the truth out, or that we make funny?
Do you want to talk about Fancy?
I think it was very, very, very telling whenever Ken wouldn't answer on whether Dee Dee deserves to die. I think it was incredibly telling, and I think it was a very, very bad thing for him to do. And I almost wonder if he just doesn't feel like he can say that. Because if his mom is always continually saying how much Ken is so empathetic and how he's such a soft heart type of thing, but yet he refuses to say that Dee Dee should not have been killed or deserved to die in the way that she did, in spite of whatever he believes. I mean, if I'm looking at Gypsy's abuse on a scale of 1 to 10, even if I believed her stories, it's not a 10. You know what I mean? Because, according to herself, she didn't even start experiencing physical abuse until much, much later. I don't feel like people should be as hard on Ken's mom as what some of them are, which I know some people can just be so against Gypsy that anybody that she has any sort of connection to is instantly a bad egg, And I understand that. I totally get that viewpoint, and it's very easy to do that, but I think I have to, when I'm looking at things, I always step back and I'm like, okay, well, of course she's going to be there for her son. if they broke up tomorrow, she wouldn't be there for Gypsy, because she's not there for Gypsy right now. She's there because Ken's there. So if Ken took himself out of that situation, she doesn't have any sort of anything owed to Gypsy, and I think she's very clear upon that. I think sometimes she can kind of misspeak whenever she's saying certain things, and I get what she's saying. She can't, if she pushes too hard, she'll lose her son and the grandbaby. And that's what's important to her, because honestly, even if she was like, I don't want anything to do with Gypsy, that's still the mother of her grandbaby. So easily, very, very easily, if Gypsy put her foot down and said, I don't want my baby around her, then that's that. It's very unlikely that Ken's gonna try to sidestep her to do that, you know, especially right now at this time whenever the baby's very, very new. But they talked a little bit about the medical issues, or the reason why Gypsy was into preterm labor, and how she was scheduled to be induced on January 16th. Her original due date was January 22nd, which that's like 6 days early, which is really not that early. Cause like a good majority of doctors these days are scheduling inductions. So it's like around that 40-week mark, they're scheduling an induction because it's easier on their schedules. Honestly, that's what I think, because I've known so many people where they're already pre-scheduling inductions in my state. So I know hospitals are different, and it depends on the area that you're in and how many doctors are available. So I think in smaller, more rural areas, they'll try to schedule this stuff, you know. So that wasn't that shocking to me, especially at, 6 days before 40 weeks, so 39 weeks or so. It makes sense. Especially some doctors they won't show up if they're like down the road eating dinner, when somebody's giving birth. They don't want to just show up. A lot of doctors do that. Like that happened to my sister. Her doctor was like eating dinner, and she was told not to push the baby out, which is like crazy. So that wasn't really anything, but I thought it was interesting how Raina basically, because Ken apparently didn't know all the intricate details of the labor and the preterm labor, because I guess Gypsy was actually dilating prior. I don't remember exactly how many weeks early, but quite a bit, like a ways away. So I would say at least 32, 33, because they elected to give Gypsy steroid shots in order to help make the baby's lungs stronger, which they'll do that anytime there's a chance of delivering that baby early, because then if their lungs are not fully developed, then you're going to have to leave them in the NICU. So that makes sense why the baby wasn't left in the NICU, unless the baby was actually term. That's also a thing, because they're of course going by the due date that is given to them based on the last period. So obviously we all know it's just an estimate. It's not like 100% for certain. I mean, I think it is kind of with Gypsy though, because she managed to track and plan it so intensely. Gypsy's story whenever she gave birth said the baby was like 6 pounds 5 ounces or so. Or Raina, Ken's mom, came on. She said the baby was very, very small at 5 pounds something. So I almost wondered maybe she got the numbers backwards, or if the baby was actually much smaller than what was reported, because obviously we know Gypsy's calling TMZ on herself. We know that. But I don't know. So I kind of went back and forth. Maybe she just, because she didn't know the exact number, she could have very easily just remembered that 5 and then put it that way. Or the baby was much smaller, which is very, very likely. But I did find it a little bit interesting that they said that the baby's feet were measuring at like 37 or 36, 37 weeks, which is kind of, I didn't know you could do that, but I guess you learn something every day. There probably is some doctor that could do that. But as far as that, I didn't really expect Ken to know every single detail about the birth, because of one, he's a first-time dad. Even if he was at every single appointment, he doesn't probably know what's important or what's a key detail and what's not, probably because they're saying a lot of things. And Gypsy, I don't think she's the brightest, so I don't think she knew what was really that important either. But I think that's, Raina wanted to go on to the panel and basically clear that information up, because all that went down, which I'm gonna play a clip, like a couple clips for you, but one of the craziest parts of whenever Ken was on the live or whatever, the panel, and he got into it with Nina, which I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with Nina. I'm gonna play it for you, and when I heard this, I literally felt like I was stuck in the backseat of a car listening to like friends that like are a couple argue in the front seat, and you're just like stuck in the back, like, oh my god, like, get me out of this car type of thing, you know what I mean? Like, that's literally like, I don't know why, even though I'm just listening to it through my phone, it just instantly felt like I was in the backseat of a car with a couple and they're about to break up.
Bullshit to get.
How do you know that, Ken, that
your
Nina
job
was a
now.
shitty employee and all that?
Because that's all that you do now. You post fake news and fake content to get views and clicks for views and money.
But my stuff has actually been proven.
No, none of your shit has been proven.
So the fact that stuff has checked out.
Bullshit. No, listen. The reality is you have nothing else. You have nothing else.
You sound really angry, Ken. Why are you big mad, Kenyatta?
Oh no,
Kenyatta, what are you upset
card to
about?
play because I'm shutting you the fuck down right now. I'm right.
Kenyatta, what are you so upset about?
You got a lot of purpose for me.
But the fact that you're a drug addict, you had a baby by a murderer, and you want to talk shit about someone, you had a baby by a murderer.
Isn't that crazy? Isn't that wild? Like, did anybody else feel like just like, oh, I mean, I was just like, oh, that was a lot. I turned it off pretty shortly after that, and I was just like, oh my god, that was a lot for me. I could not handle that. That was just too much, overwhelming, too many things happening at one time, wasn't getting anywhere. I usually will watch this stuff just to get some information and to find out information, and I could see that wasn't gonna happen, so I just ended up not finishing the entire thing. I don't know how much longer it went on, but it was a lot. Yeah, so I can understand why Ken probably didn't want to talk anymore after that. And that's probably why his mom felt the need to go on the next day and defend him, which, I mean, obviously he's an adult. In the panel, Ken said that he was in a house in, I'm totally gonna say this wrong, Mediary? I don't know, in this town. And apparently he had been living in New Orleans for a long time in an apartment, and I literally asked, there's a creator on TikTok known as Ivory Rose Grows Wild, and months ago I had asked her a question because I had noticed something during one of the lives that Ken and Gypsy were doing. I noticed something about their door, and I was like, that does not look like a standard apartment door. I went out of my way to message this girl, like, what do your apartments, like, what do the doors look like standard? Like, where I'm from, they're like a solid door. It's not gonna have like a window, it's not gonna be like super nice, they're just gonna be like a standard, total, solid, heavy door. And she totally did not get what I was saying or why I was asking. I'm like, no, like I tried to explain it, but then I think she just thought I was like like I was stupid, but I'm like, you're not understanding where I'm going with this. So I feel like so many times I'm just like, are you getting what I'm getting? You know what I mean? Because like the way my mind works, I'm like, oh, I noticed that. And I'm trying to like get some other information because obviously things are different state to state. So I wanted to know overall, what do they look like in that area? Because she's, you know, within 30 minutes. So a lot of those areas are going to kind of be similar as far as the type of apartment that you're living in, if that makes any sense. I want to know, do apartments have standard windows like within them? I feel like that's not really typical, but I can only go by what I'm familiar with. So that was a total fail, and I was gonna make a whole video about it like months ago, but it obviously didn't work out because she was just like, literally thought I was stupid. She was on a live too, and I asked her, I was like, what did the doors look like? So that didn't happen, but totally knew that. I instantly, like, as soon as he slipped up on that, I was like, man, I should have just posted that video because I could have called it. Not even by just some sort of inside scoop, but just by me like connecting the dots or noticing weird things, because I guess that's just how my mind works. But I do think it's, even though Gypsy said that she did not have CPS called on her and CPS was not at the house, I think what it is that this baby, because we all know that Gypsy said that she thinks the baby has her eyes. That could go a lot of ways because Gypsy's eyes are clearly very unique. So I think with her saying that she has her eyes, even if they're not as intense as what Gypsy's were, which I mean, Gypsy's progressed to get worse. You know what I mean? So I think if she's got the same similar eye shape, there's a likelihood that this baby does have a chromosome deletion. And if, according to Raina, they have not got the baby tested for this chromosome deletion, and I think that's very, very telling. They said that the baby was too young, which, I mean, she could have got the baby tested in utero, or even I think with probably the cord blood. They could have tested that cord blood to see if this baby carries any of these genetic issues, but apparently they're not doing it. I think that's a red flag. Raina also said that the baby is going to the hospital once every week. That's not normal. I think it's very possible the baby lost, you know, all babies lose weight when they're born. That's just a fact. The time it becomes like an issue is whenever they fail to gain and then they continue to lose. So that's how you kind of get to like that failure to thrive thing, which can happen very, very quick in little babies. So they could be monitoring the weight. And then I also thought if they didn't have CPS called on them, which I wouldn't be surprised because honestly there are people out there that will just call just because they feel like it. I think if anything, it's an early intervention type of thing that is given through these departments. So like, it's not really CPS, it's like DCFS will offer these early head start to basically help these kids that are maybe more at risk. Basically like an early intervention program to help make sure that they stay on the track as much as they possibly can if they are more at risk for being delayed in any sort of way. So it's very possible that somebody could have sent a social worker to the home to help with that, or obviously we know she's still on parole. That could definitely play a part in it, but I definitely think it has something to do with her chromosome microdeletion. And honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if they weren't using this baby to monitor and study for a good remainder of its life. Again, this is a very, very rare genetic mutation. There's not a lot known about this. I tried to go back and look into some studies about it, and gosh, even the studies are really bad because they were trying to like monitor the pregnant women that had babies that either tested positive for the deletion or duplication on that first chromosome, and like 90% of them ended the pregnancy. So there would only be like one birth out of, 25 women they opted to terminate. So it would not surprise me whatsoever if they have somebody that is coming in and studying and monitoring, seeing how she's hitting her, her goals or whatever, making sure that she's staying on track. Does she have any abnormalities? Does she have heart problems? Does she have anything like that? Because I think it said when women were pregnant that carried this, that heart problems were very common amongst the babies. But again, it's not like common as in like a lot, just like in the few that is available. It's really crazy that this is even, I would think it would probably be more likely to be that. But I want to say, you guys, if you feel like you want to be one that is calling on her, don't do that. Like, don't do that, because if there ever comes a time whenever that baby really does need help for any sort of situation and people are continually calling on her, she'll be very likely to get out of that situation if she has a history of saying, oh, people are just haters and I'm a public figure, I'm an influencer, and they're calling on me just because they want to, whatever. So don't do that, because it could be very detrimental to the baby. There comes a time where the baby actually needs help or intervention. Don't call just because you don't like somebody. That is just not what you do. And I mean, if you are in the vicinity of her and you see something, that's different. But if you're just online looking at everybody's social media posts the same as everyone else, don't call, because it can definitely have a negative effect. I do think that, Ken really doesn't, but I feel like his mom really tries to at least in some way acknowledge what has happened. I think in the beginning she was trying to be careful about what she's saying. Obviously, like throughout that panel, Ken was blowing up her phone, probably telling her to get off of there, and because she was going to end up saying something that she probably would regret, or that would possibly, I would say, get Ken in trouble, because I'm sure Gypsy did not like to hear the fact that Ken's mom basically was like, I don't hate her, but I mean, it is what it is type of thing. I'm sure Gypsy was really hoping to hear that Ken's mom loved her and adored her. She wants people to push out this fake narrative, and Ken's mom was much more willing to acknowledge and say, hey, it absolutely is wrong. And I could understand what she was meaning or intending when she's trying to say, like, I don't know what you expect me to do. It's been so many years. I cannot beat this over her head every single time I see her. I do understand that, because like I said again, it would drive Ken and his mom apart, and she doesn't want that. She wants to be involved with Ken and her grandbaby. It has nothing to do with Gypsy. And even when you're just listening to what they're saying, when she's like, what do you have me do? Like, what do you think I should do? And it's like, there's not necessarily a right answer on what you could do. I mean, yeah, easily you could say, like, nope, cut him off. And this isn't anything against Morbid necessarily, because he's a man, and fathers and mothers are very different. Like, mothers are much more nurturing. They're more nurturing. That's their, like, biological thing. You know, that's what they provide for kids. Fathers, on the other hand, they're more, you know, bringing them up, raising, at least in this context. But I do feel for her. She wants to be involved with her son, but she doesn't want to push him away. But I guarantee you she wasn't happy. She probably didn't love it, and she probably was nervous. But I think they were also bamboozled, and I think it was probably a very, very difficult thing to overcome whenever all this started coming out, and all this information and the text messages, because she said she read them, all these documents and stuff, so she at least wants to read the actual information, and I do applaud her for that, because it is easier to just be like, I don't want to see it, like how Ken's doing. And I can totally understand her not wanting to read Gypsy's book, especially if Ken was like, don't read it. Embarrassing. I mean, it was a very dirty book. I mean, it crossed the line of what it needed to accomplish as far as the sexual aspects of it. It really went too far. So I can understand why he was like, don't read this, like, please. And I almost wonder if Gypsy, like, obviously we know she didn't actually physically write this, so I wonder if she would try to play it off as a ghostwriter type of thing. I don't know what they did, but clearly Ken was really triggered by the book, and he read it, did not want to comment on it, absolutely refused to comment on it. And I mean, I can understand. I think it's probably a sore subject for them. I do think, obviously they're still together, and the TMZ article that basically showed Gypsy and Ken going out or to the mall or whatever as a date night without the baby, it said fiance, which I know some people have said that they're broken up, appearing to be very much together. So I don't know if it's like, if they're still together by the time the show ends, maybe that'll, I don't know. Overall, I don't know why they go onto these panels and expect to do any sort of damage control. It's just not ever going to work for them. I feel like obligated for their own reasons. I think Ken feels obligated to defend Gypsy, and it wouldn't surprise me if she was pushing him to do it in some sort of way. But I know it's just so weird that they're all going on there. I feel like nobody else would do that. But like, again, this whole situation is so very unique and intriguing. Like, this whole true crime crossover public reality TV type of thing. It's just very odd. Going over to content creation, it's just so like, I've never seen anything like this before. But let me know what you guys thought about, if you watched any of these panels. What was the biggest red flag for you? Was it Ken not being able to say that Dee Dee didn't really deserve to die in spite of whatever he believes about her, or the abuse that Gypsy has said happened to her? Obviously we know that to not be true, or whatever. What do you guys think about this? Let me know down below in the comments. I will see you guys next time. Make sure to like this video, and then please hit the subscribe button. Again, thank you guys for watching this video. To all my subscribers, I appreciate it. I will see you guys next time. Bye.